This type of Yerushalmi Pesachim in the article Ozver edition when Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph, the fifth line down. Chatas Hashem Bailim Minayin, and that in the Vilna is on Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph. It's not as easy to find. It's 15 lines down on the Amud. Chatas Hashem Bailim Minayin. How do you know that a chatas has to be shechted for its owner? That's part of its lishma. It has to be shechted for its owner. Amar B'Yirmiyah, Rabbi Yirmiyah said, "V'sakoin es chatos." The Kohen should make the chatos v'chiper ala kol mitaher mitumaso, and atone for the person who is coming to purify himself from his tumah. So, from this we derive that he has to deliberately be mechaper for the person who's accomplishing the kapara through the chatos. Amar Rabbi Yosef said, "Mi'ato estres afilu hekter imurim." Even the putting of the murim, the chalovim, and the parts of putting on top of his back should have to be done l'shibushem bailim. Tamalova v'chiper. No, he says no because there's emphasis here on kapara. Mat tzvikom yuchedashim akeres kapara. Just it's referencing Zrika and anything similar to Zrika, which is an impediment for kapara. That's why Murin Shalak is as opposed to Hektar which is not mandatory for the kapara. So the Shas asks, "Tzarchim ma'inyan shei ba'im etzak Torah." What's the shit have to do with putting on the Murim? Shei ba'im lo havi ela b'Zrika. It's only in the Zrika Saddam. Although gam b'shchita kabbalah lo misa shei ba'im. Because Shini Bailam is not even puzzle in the Shechita or Kabbalah, where Shalol Lishma does puzzle. It's only B'chishav and Asli Zrok. So he says in that case, skipping the Marmakan springs, even came back to Chazrika, Lo Shach Shini Bailam Kal. Back to which is after Zrika, what's the Havamina? Why do you need a puzzle? It's Pasha, it's after Kapara, it's I do with Kapara. So I wrote here on the side of my Gemara Derech Hadrash that the chatas, when you come to atone for Avera, it's the tachlis is the person should see himself as if he's okra gami mizbeach, as if he himself is being sacrificed to atone for his sins. So I might think that therefore the hektar murim is dafka being done with Shem Bailim. I think it's very clear that Derech Hadrash, so it's a part of Shadar. Okay, next ask Gemara Pesach. What about Pesach Shem Bailim Minayin? I know the Pesach be shechted for the owners. Bedino, it's logic. Umayim chato, logic here means kavachomer, of course. Umayim chato she'em machshavas arel t'meim posibah. Chatos, if you have thoughts to shecht it for people who are orel or tameh, it doesn't possible it. Chatos to be shechted for orel or tameh. Tzvicha shetei l'shem bailim has to be for the purpose of the owners. Pesach shemachshavas arelim t'meim posibah. With Pesach where machshava for arelim t'meim does possible it, because they're not allowed to have any shaykhs to the Korban Pesach. And the Shed Tzar L'Shem Bailim is not Kavachom, which does have to be L'Shem Bailim. Says one, no, doesn't follow. Lo matter with Chatosh, Kodesh Kodashim, you can't extrapolate. Just because you say by Chatos, which is Kodesh Kodashim, Torah Pesach, Kodesh Kalim, going to say he's saying by Pesach, which is Kodesh Kalim. Well, says maybe it's with much looser parameters. So it says, nah, that's not a pure, that's not a rejection of Chum. Rabbi Yosef said, I'm not learning thought. Chumei explains nicely. He says, you're not learning Pesach except in terms of thought. In terms of thought. In terms of Pesach Chomer, you find Pesach more severe. Pesach more severe. We said before, Pesach Mashava Sareli Tmein Posavas, right? The way Pesach, the Mashava of Areli Tmein Pasal, so therefore, even though it's Kachim Kalim, but in terms of Machshava, it's more Chomer, so therefore you can learn the parameters of Machshava, Kav Chomer, from Chatos to Pesach. Amar Bechina Kumei Imana, maybe Chanina said from Imana, Chatos Shel Mitzorah Anu Lamedim. It says the requirement is B'Tzmiah. Is well, actually, it's the middle sentence. Let's read the next sentence. Again, is not the Chatas and Mitzvah have a unique Kiddush? Shetahitun and the Sachim. It requires the Sachim, right? And it has requires oil and wine. The Mishnah Menachos of Tzayim Beis says that it's unique among the Chatas and Asham. Mitzvah is unique that it requires the Sachim as opposed to any other Chatas and Asham. So we were from Chatas Mitzera, right? Which of course is the pasuk which you saw before. But so it's Chatas prepare me to myself. That pasuk is about the Chatas Mitzera. So Chatas Mitzera is unique that it's to them in the Sachim. So maybe therefore the Yerushalmi Pesachim brings puts in the words here the Fichach Tzarich L'Shem Bailim. I don't know if you need to have put that in. Other suggestions for figure. So Gersa changes here in the art school, but whether you put in the Gersa or not, therefore it's L'Shem Bailim, right? So the Davar Sheyatz Chidusha is a matter of something which is unique in its Kiddush. We can't derive anything from it. Maybe that's why, because it requires Nesachim. That's why it requires L'Shem Bailim. It's unique. The Yerushalmi Pesachim brings down a Sefer Thesis. It says learns the Yerushalmi Pesachim without putting in those words or that meaning, and actually the context should be that the requirement requires the Nesachim L'Shem Bailim. Okay, so which would be a very big Kiddush. I think the Sodom L'Shem Bailim, but simple meaning of Yerushalmi. But again, everybody changes gears or makes interpretation that so Chiddush has a special Kiddush that it needs to Zochim. Maybe that's why the Shem has to be Shem Bailim, but not a Korban Pesach. So he says Mara says no, that's not the problem. I mean, the Chatas Mitzvah Mechel Lamda Shei B'Sur Shalishma. I don't know Chatas Mitzvah is Pasuk Shalishma. Let me know then Christ and not for this pasuk. The Siva says V'Shachat Osal Lechatos. Right, you have to shecht it Chatos. In other words, Osal Chatos means that's be the shame Chatos. About Chatos, normal Chatos, Chatos for eating Kalim and such like. And from that, we derive that it's also true by Mitzvah because those Torahs HaChatos, this is the Torah of Chatos, and that teaches Torah Chatz Chol Chatos or Chatos are the same, right? So therefore, anything which says by Mitzvah is true by any or Chatos as well, because anything that says by Chalev is true by Mitzvah. Anything by Mitzvah it says is true by Chatos Chalev. Because those are Torah, those are Chatos, so therefore we're not learning out specifically from Mitzvah, which might have a unique Kiddush to it, but for the fact that all Chatos are the same. So the special Kiddush in Mitzvah from the Sachim, that's a nice Kiddush, so to speak, peripheral. And at the core, all Chatos are the same, so we have from all Chatos to Pesachim, specifically from Mitzvah. Bakoshila made the Mishami Lamedes, from the place where from which it's learnt. Right, from which Torah is learned, therefore, which was that has to be that has to be lishma, and there it's made back that all chatos has to be lishma, also Shem Bailim, and then we make the kavachomer and say kavachomer Korban Pesach has to be the Shem Bailim as well. Now, what about mekashim me'avodah lavodah? Shach lishma, you shach lishma, but we zvok dam lishma, but when you shach, that might be zorek the dam lishma. So, Amar B'Yochanan says. Yesh lo lishmo ba'avoda la'avoda, which called the ba'avoda chashim ba'avoda la'avoda. There's the shlo lishmo which go in one avoda for another avoda v'upasul. The B'Shem and Lakish Amar, the following word here appears in the Vilna Yesh. All unfortunately change it to Ein. See, the article change it to Ein. Yes, he does. Ein shlo lishmo ba'avoda la'avoda. You can't be mechashim from one In other words, time shchita, you can think about shchita shlo lishma apostles, but you can without shchita you should have thought that the Swedish shlo lishma. There's no, that's not as apostle. Amar ein shlo lishma avodah avodah, be a kosher, and therefore it is without it's kosher. Rabbi Ela, let's say Mechshavas Pigul Rabbi Yechon. Rabbi Yechon learned that Mechashi Avodah from Mechshavas Pigul Ilu. Now we're going to go to the Girsa of the Karban Eder here. Karban Eder says, Hakagasina Ilu Shachat. If you shechted, I'm nasli zog domo lemocher. Yeah, you shechted in order to do the zvika at the wrong time, right? Shem ain't a pigul, right? It's not a pigul. That's a pigul. The Mechshav Chutz is Mara Chutz Kemo. That's a pigul. So therefore, just like Shem ain't again. Ilu Shem nasli zog domo lemocher Shem ain't a pigul. So the here too. Therefore, Shach Lishmo, Zokta Mashlo Lishmo, is also possible. Just like it's Pigel, it's also possible. Amr Rabbi Yosef, we said, Min Taiting Min Lin. The Mechal line says, from two things, it will be come clear to us that there's no comparison between Pigul and Shlo Lishmo. That Lo Damya, Mechshavas Pigul and Mechshavas Psul. Okay, so we're gonna reject that comparison. So you can't draw an inference from how Pigul works to how Shlo Lishmo works. The next few lines we're gonna have to change the Girsa based on in order to make it work out. This is from the Gilin Ephraim based on the light in the manuscript Girsa, and the Yerushalmi Pesachim also brings it down. So in order to make this work out better. But let's first say the premise, and then we'll work backwards to the text itself. So what he's going to say here is that I forgot who was speaking again. Rabbi Yossi. Okay, so he says that there's no comparison between the way Shlo Lishmo works and Pigul works, because let's look at Kabbalah Saddam. If a person thought at the time of Shechita to be makabel the dam Shlo Lishmo, it doesn't pass the korban. Even though if you were makabel the dam shlo lishmo, it does pass. But the thought of shchita to do the kabbalah sadam shlo lishmo doesn't pass. Only the kabbalah sadam itself shlo lishmo passes, right? But by pigul it's the opposite. By pigul, the thought of being the father at the time of shchita to do that, meaning that you're going to bring the murim at the wrong time, is mefagel the korban. But if you had at the time of if you had a machshavas pigul at the aktaras murim at the time of aktaras murim, in other words, you did them deliberately at the wrong time, or having in mind even doing it at the wrong time, when you do it at the wrong time, it's not mefagel. So pigul works on the future, but psul works, shlo lishmo works on the present, and therefore you can't compare the two. There's no comparison. You can't extrapolate from pigul to Shlo Lishmo. Pigul is unique because Pigul is almanas to do something else at the wrong time and place. It's the Chila, Aktor, whatever it is. It's Shlo Lishmo is on the avodah itself. Okay, so now let's read inside the way the Leiden has it. Ilu shachto lishmo. If you shechted the korban lishmo, the kabel dama shelo lishmo. The makabel the dam shelo lishmo. Shema eno kosher. Is it not kosher? Of course it's kosher because the machshava at time shchita on the kabbalah is not problematic. Shachto lishmo. If you shechted lishmo, and here it say now it should say vikibel. And makabel damo shelo lishmo. And makabel damo shelo lishmo. Then it's possible. Right. So if the thought at time shchita do kabbalah shelo lishmo is not problem. Doing the Kabbalah Shlo Lishmo itself, at the time you do it, there's a problem. But Ilu Shachto Lishmo, if you shechted Lishmo Aktiri Murav, now Shelo Lishmo. Now here Shelo Lishmo means not literally Shelo Lishmo, but Shelo Vizmano, because it's about Pigul, obviously. So therefore, even though it's used Shelo Lishmo, because we just use Shelo Lishmo and Agav Grara continues to use terminology, it means Shelo Vizmano. So again. Ilu shachto lishmo, Laktim Rav Shalol Lishmo, meaning at the wrong time. Shemein Pigel is not Pigel. In other words, type of the Torah to Shechita in order to do the Aktor Simon at the wrong time. That's B'tzei Pigel. Whereas Shachto Lishmo, if you do Shachto Lishmo, V'chiktir Imurim Shalishmo. In other words, you maktir Imurim at the wrong time, if with the wrong thought, but at the wrong time with the wrong thought. So it's kosher. So therefore, it's exactly there's no comparison between the processes, which are very, very distinct from each other. Look at the article. I think it also changes the gear very similarly, but it has a slightly different shot. But because he's learning, both parts, both clauses are laying on people. I'm sold. I'm not sure why it does that. Frank seems to work out very well. Okay, so continuing on. So now we've rejected this the derivation of psul from pigul. So Rabbi Yosef said, "Anachamis Rabbi Yirmiyah, I Rabbi Yirmiyah, Tafis Rabbi Ba, I see Rabbi Ba." He said, "Amarli, time with the Rabbi Yochanan. Tell me the reason Rabbi Yochanan. Lama shachta lishmo lizok, lama shlo lishmo pasul. Why are you chashem but avoided? Why is shachta lishmo lizok doim shlo lishmo pasul? Why? We just saw that you can't compare psul to pigul." So he said, "Nasim ishori shoina." He becomes from the get-go, from the time of the shechting, k'shokto lishmo v'shelo lishmo, as if he shechted both lishmo and shelo lishmo. So the thought of doing the zrika shelo lishmo comes from our machshava the shchita, and therefore who puzzle. That's why it's puzzle. I want to ask, wait a minute, if you can look at it that way, and draw a later thought and say, since the later thought was sort of now, it's as if the later thought is part and parcel of this thought, and the possible is it should work to be machshir as well. Okay, I'm living Kenny. If that's the case, I feel shachto shlo ochlim, which is no good. You have to shech pesach for its ochlim. Right? We said that. It's the shem bailim. We said the shem bailim. Shem bailim. But the shech shlo ochlav lizok is damo, and the Kamei both changed it lochlav. To resurrect the dam leochlav, he had in mind to do zrika leochlav. So, v'yasa, that's the case. V'yasa mishori shayna. So they become like from the get go, it compact both towards the shchita, and should be v'yasa mishori shayna k'shokto leochlav shlo leochlav. V'ya kosher, which is good, right? Shlo is not good, but ochlav shlo ochlav is good. So why don't you say? So you said the shlo lishmo later on is on the speaker is compacted into the thought of shchita and makes it puzzle. Because it's lishmo shalishmo. That's the opposite. Hachshir that if you had in mind the shchita shalochlav, but the zvok l'ochlav compacts that thought of l'ochlav in the shchita, and it's kosher. It should work both ways. And leis yochil, that's not true. You can't say that. The Marabi Shem Rabbi Yechon shachta l'ochlav, he was shechted for the oichlim lizok damash l'ochlav to be zorei damash l'ochlav. It says here in the Vilna kosher, but the Kormei changes the puzzle. Let's see what the article does. Changes not vex, but he changes it in the commentary. Brackets parentheses on the kosher and brackets on puzzle. Okay, so the Asa Rabbi Yechon indeed came. Rabbi Yechon Asa Rabbi Yaakov Achva said B'Shem Yechon indeed. No, we do have a Messiah that your logic is correct. He says, Rabbi Yaakov says, Rabbi Yechon, Shachto l'ochav, he shechet for the oichlim, lizog dama shlo l'ochlav, kosher. I have to be honest here and say, there is a little bit of a difficulty. It would have been much better if it would have said, going back, it said, would have said, Leis yochad Mario Shema Yochanan Shachto Shalol Ochlav Lizog Damo Ochlav is puzzle, right? And as Rabbi Yaakov Shema Yochanan said Shachto Shalol Ochlav Lizog Damo Ochlav is kosher, because then the whole thing is consistent, right? That's the first. We're asking about it should be okay if you shaychet shlo l'ochlav lizog l'ochlav because the compacting thoughts. And then we said, well, we see it's no good, and we say no, but we have an alternative version that it's good. But it's not. This Gemara does change here midstream, and it's a little bit rough, but even the intent is still the same. So again, let's read it and let's highlight that there's this. It's not 100% glot, but it's that's the way you have to learn. So it says, "Well, being Kenny, I feel shachto shlolachlav lizos damer loochlav v'yasek shor yishayel kishachto loochlav shlolachlav v'yakosher." At least yachil, you can say, "Mari v'lishem Rabbi Yochanan." In the opposite case, shachto loochlav v'shechto loochlav lizok damer shlolachlav to be zorek dam shlolachlav. It's possible. Now, okay, with Kormeis Girsa. Now, so we see that it's the. Why is it puzzle? Let's say the thoughts are compacted, and the thoughts are compacted, so it's because it's ochlav, right? So we see you don't compact. If the shachtal ochlav is good, but the zigdom ochlav which you have in mind at the time shchita passes it. So don't compact kosher. He says, "Rabbi Yaakov says no shachtal ochlav. If you shachtal ochlav, it's zigdom ochlav. It's kosher because." The apostle thought of Shalochav, since the time Shechita, it's compacted on the thought of La'ochlav, and therefore it's kosher. Okay, so it's not 100% glad, but the principle works the same, even though we would have preferred the Regeris to be the opposite. Now the Gemara says, based on this Masorah, Yaakov Achel, B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, that's Rabbi Yosa. There's another reason. Remember, before we said Mitaytim Milain, Rabbi Yosef reject Rabbi Yochanan before we said the issue with the Kabbalah Saddam, and now we're saying from this issue, based on Rabbi Yaakov Rachel, also we were going to refute Rabbi Yochanan. And a lot of unfortunate change of yourselves here, but I don't think it's necessary, so we're just going to go straight here. Rabbi Yosef mean trade time in Rabbi Yochanan from two reasons Rabbi Yochanan. In other words, for the fact Rabbi Yochanan seems to contradict himself in this matter as well. Lama shachto lishmo, why shachto lishmo? Lizrok damo shelo lishmo, right? Puzzle. Why I say it's puzzle? Because you're saying nasa mishor rishoina. Because saying that it's as if mishor rishoina kishachto shelo lishmo lishmo v'shelo lishmo for puzzle. Because you're going to say you compact on top of each other, and you say it's like kishachto lishmo and shelo lishmo. It's puzzle, right? In other words, you compact. That's the second thought of the Zvikas Adam Shalishmo on top of the Shechita, and you say it's like Shalishmo and Shalishmo. That's possible. In that case, Lama Shochto LaOchlav Lizok Dama Shlo LaOchlav. If you shechted LaOchlav Lizok Dama Shlo LaOchlav, you're saying kosher. And you say not Rishayna Kishokto LaOchlav Shlo LaOchlav kosher. You're saying that this should also either should be both possible or both kosher. Yochanan being mezaka shtar lebei trei. You're saying lishmo and shlo lishmo we compact it and we say it's possible, and ochlav shlo ochlav we compact it we say it's kosher. Now, to me it seems I'm not 100% sure I understand that because lishmo it could be lishmo and shlo lishmo is no good because there's the shlo lishmo aspect. Ochlav shlo ochlav, that the ochlav perhaps could fill, could fill the void. In other words, shlo lishmo is a psul. Shlo ochlav is a void, right? So lishmo can't counteract the shlo lishmo. Because shlo lishmo is an active psul as opposed to shlo ochlav, which is a lack. So an active psul can't be contradicted by the second thought, but a lack can be filled by the second thought of ochlav. That's how I'd be mechalik by Rabbi Yochanan, but obviously he doesn't hold that way. He holds that they should be the same, either both be kosher or both be psul puzzle. He doesn't hold there's a difference between shlo ochlav and shlo lishmo. They're both the psulim, and if the one is counteracted by bringing in the ochlav of the other together with the shlo ochlav and combining them together, then lishmo also can be able to counteract the shlo lishmo by combining the lishmo together. So therefore, he rejects Rabbi Yochanan. I think that's what Rabbi China is about to say. Rabbi China Amar Kun Raimana B'Shem Rabbi Yudan Tam Rabbi Yochanan. Why isn't that a contradiction, Rabbi Yochanan? It says Koshi Yovel Oisa Avoda Ve'Ein Mechashiv Lo. So and you don't have a machshava. In other words, the machshava is not a machshava which is a psul. It's a lack. There's something, a void, which has to be filled. Mechashiv lo me'avodah acheres lo. Mechashiv to fill that gap. That's why you can take the ochlav, which you compacted on the shlochav, and it works together. But it doesn't work. But it's not going to work with shloli shmo, which is an active where it's an active psul that you can't contradict by bringing in another avodah. I think that's what he means. I think that's exactly what he's going to say. That your contradiction, Rabbi Yochanan, is not really a contradiction. Because you can schlep in when you're lacking something to fill for something that avodah. Can't schlep in to contradict a psul. Okay, that brings us to the bottom of Lamed Zayin Mabei, so we can stop here for today.